to Fort Wainwright, Alaska, or the Arctic Circle Ice Station Zebra. It is cold. We got snow coming in. I don't know how much they're calling, Jimmy. They're calling 4 to 7 inches, and another one is 17 inches. Who knows what we're going to get? But either way, it is cold here in Parkin, Arkansas, and we're sitting here, got a fire going, college basketball playing, and another 2 hours to go on the www.sidelines.live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show podcast. Gordon Ford is going to be calling in just a moment, and we're going to be talking a lot of college basketball here in the first half hour. At 3:30, Richmond Weaver from Richmond on Sports was with us yesterday. Had to get off early. We want to continue, and Jimmy, you made a great point. It was a question that you were asking and got caught up in a break, and he had to get off, but we will pick that up today. He covers Clemson and the Carolinas, the ACC really well, and we know what's going on over there with basketball this year. North Carolina, Duke, not your typical teams that they would have. Actually, North Carolina is like about 500, 26 and 25 since they lost to Auburn in the Sweet 16 out in Kansas City a couple of years ago. I don't think that's the reason why, but there's just something's not right with the Carolina basketball program. Certainly not with Duke's program. But 4 o'clock, Doug Dean's going to join us from down in Birmingham, and we're going to be talking with him college football and basketball. So, bottom line, next 2 hours, a lot of good information. Like I said, Gordon has stopped off for a road soda, he said, and he should be calling in here in just a moment because he's early into his day. Jimmy, college basketball last night, the takeaway from the whole day is Eric Musselman and the Hogs continue to win the conference games. They're hot, and so is Ole Miss. Alabama's still in first place, but the Hogs have earned their way into second place. What are you seeing right now from Arkansas that you didn't see 3 weeks ago?
A road win in the SEC.
Yeah.
It wasn't a great week for Missouri. Last Saturday, from about the 3-minute mark left in the game against Alabama, they just haven't been playing very well. They had a 15-point lead at home against Bama with just over 3 minutes left and did everything possible to try to blow it. They were very fortunate to hang on at the very end for the win. And then they got blown out at Ole Miss earlier in the week. And then, weren't able to, get it done against Arkansas. They were able to force the game into an overtime, but this is an Arkansas team that has had issues on the road. And that was a huge win for them. And Missouri right now is, they got to find a way to stop the bleeding here because, they really have been pretty, solid for the most part. Now, with that being said, they got beat pretty soundly around a month ago at home against Tennessee before going to Knoxville a couple of weeks ago and returning the favor. So, there's just a lot of uncertainty in the league with the exception of Bama, who's only had one loss. Now, they've had some scares, but they've always been able to come up with the big basket at the right time. And they've got multiple players, they can give you a basket when they need it. And that's what's really separated them. When they've been able to get their transition game going, they have multiple players that can shoot the three. And if they can keep Herb Jones out of the injury trouble that he had last year, they've got the potential to make a nice run in the tournament. So that's the way things are right now. I mean, it's Alabama and then really almost any other team in the conference. If they're not ready to play, they can potentially lose to a conference opponent. And another big surprise yesterday, Vandy blowing out Mississippi State in Starkville. I mean, I certainly didn't see that. And, it just goes to show you that, if you just keep working hard, every day, a lot of these players will
Well, you can't ever let up in this league, and
like
that's
to go through the grind of conference play. And again, that Vandy score, I mean, that was just a big surprise.
well, it was, and I know Gordon is trying to call in now, and he's really wanting to talk about Ben Howland at Mississippi State. We know about the 3 Final Fours at UCLA, but it's not happening right now, at least at Mississippi State. Not like people would have expected it to, especially with you come in with that record and that resume of 3 Final Fours, and yeah, and when you start getting into playing in the SEC night in and night out, it's a tough league. The other thing is that that everybody in the SEC a few years ago began to really ramp up their conference, their commitment, their commitment to basketball. Okay, and if you don't have a commitment to basketball or don't have a commitment to football, it doesn't matter. I mean, you can. There's tons of talent out here, and that's something that Jake Crane was saying yesterday about what's happening at North Carolina and what's happening at Duke and the ACC. And it's really a case of, okay, what you have going on is everybody in the SEC now is really ramping up their commitment to basketball. And because of that, it's not as easy as it used to be for the ACC schools. Look, Kentucky has always been able to go in, even to Alabama, Georgia, it doesn't matter, and get players. But it isn't happening like it used to be so easy let's go ahead and bring you in here, Gordon. I'm going to try it again. Okay. And you start thinking about
connection.
Yeah.
I can't get my house like deadbolts.
Yeah.
But anyway,
I was going to say, Gordon, here. Okay. Gordon's here. He didn't know he was talking to us, but I think it was the metal plate in his head. I don't know what it was. Well, we tried 3 or 4 times and trying to merge you in with Jimmy. Sorry about that, everybody. But what I was just saying was that, Jake Crane pointed out yesterday,
Rob, you still there? I can barely hear you.
Yeah, I'm here. The SEC schools have made such a big commitment to their basketball programs, and that's affecting the ACC. Gordon, how about now? Gordon, are you there? Okay. Jimmy, go ahead and pick back up. We lost you. I don't know if we got a bad connection, if we got snow and ice on the line, or we got Bigfoot.
Rob, I can't hear a word you're saying. You're not coming through. You got a really bad connection.
Well,
we'll call back.
Yeah, call back. Okay. I don't know what's going on there with Gordo, but I'm not sure if he's got an iPhone 4 or an iPhone 5, but it's just not coming through. But look, everybody in the SEC, let's try this one again. Everybody in the conference has made a serious commitment pretty much to basketball. And Gordon and Jimmy and I have been talking about last night, Arkansas. They've won 3 in a row. They got a road win in the conference. That's a big deal. And Jimmy, you were making a point, and then we lost you and Gordon. But Jimmy, go ahead and finish what you were saying.
Well, again, with the SEC, I mean, it's just been a situation where, Alabama's just been a step or two ahead of everybody all year long. They've had a core of players who last year, I think, were maybe hesitant to buy into what Nate Oates was trying to, emphasize as the style of basketball he wanted to play. They lost a bunch of close games last year, and virtually all of those guys are back, and they've really bought in. And they certainly hadn't had any trouble buying into that transition basketball that Oates likes to play.
Yeah.
Especially if they're able to get the rebound on the defensive end. They're going full speed the other way, and they're very athletic. They have multiple guys that can not only shoot the ball, but they can shoot the three, which is really critical in today's game for obvious reasons, just because whenever you make a three, you're getting rewarded an extra 50% on the scoreboard as opposed to making a regular basket. And they have multiple guys that can hit that shot. And when you get on a roll, you can really stretch a lead against any opponent. And at the same time, if you've been struggling, you can erase a big lead very quickly. And again, Petty's really been the guy that gets them going offensively. But their best all-around player is Herb Jones because he can do everything.
Yeah, they've got serious talent on that team.
Yeah, and then you've got a situation with, and we've talked about it before with a team like Auburn. That's the youngest team out of the 350 that play Division I college basketball. And I think they're experiencing, the obstacles you have to go through and going through the grind of a Power 5 conference season. And they've been competitive in most of their games, but then, they've lost some tough ones late. Although yesterday, they showed a really good characteristic when they had fallen behind by 12 to Kentucky after getting burned on a 30-11 run, and they fought back and really had a chance to win at the end. They were tied with 30 seconds left, and Mintz hit that big three, and Kentucky was able to hang on to win. But they just have to keep plugging away and just getting these guys more experience against this level of competition. And then Cooper, people don't realize he's only been on this roster a little more than a month.
Yeah.
And he's still trying to get acclimated, to playing in this league, to playing with his teammates. So those are some of the growing pains you have. And then a tough week for Georgia, a loss to Tennessee on the road, and they just got annihilated yesterday by Bama.
Yeah.
They set a school scoring record, I believe, with 115 points.
Yeah, 115 to 82. And, yeah, it was brutal.
Yeah. And then, Tennessee having a tough day at the office, just couldn't score and really had a tough time stopping LSU from scoring. And, had a setback definitely in Baton Rouge. So, like I said, it's just a typical week in the SEC in which there's just a lot of unpredictability. I certainly didn't expect Arkansas to win at Missouri, and I certainly didn't see Vandy beat Mississippi State by 20 in Starkville.
Yeah, so, Jimmy, let me say this.
You know what, Jimmy? You mentioned that game. I think it's time for Ben Howland to start catching some grief. You know what? I mean, look at them. I mean, they're not winning anything.
Gordon, I thought about a month ago was really a sign of trouble ahead when they could not beat a Texas A&M team in Starkville that couldn't score 60 if they emptied the gym. And they hung on, A&M did, and won the game. Buzz is a great coach, but he does not have the firepower necessary to even come close to being even in the middle of the pack in the SEC, although he managed to do it last year. But they got to get some guys that can score, and for State not to be able to beat that particular team, that was just a sign of bad things to come. Even though State played well on the road at Bama, at Tennessee, but still, you got to win some of those games, and certainly those middle of the road teams, you have to beat them at home, and they've just got to be better offensively.
Gordo, talk about Ole Miss now. They've won 4 SEC games in a row. They're getting hot.
They are getting hot. You're absolutely correct. Calm down. I just got my dead bones open. But anyway, they are playing much better. They're playing better defense. Hold a second.
Okay.
Be quiet.
Well, they're playing better defense, but they've got some talent. Yeah, they're scoring.
And that's the whole key.
Yeah, they are. Hey, if you want to call back, just call back in a minute, Gordon. You got too much noise, can't hear. Yeah. Just call us back here in just a second, Gordon, and we'll get this thing worked out so we can hear you better.
I'm more.
Okay, whoops. And you're talking about Ole Miss, 4 wins in a row, Arkansas 3 in a row, and Eric Musselman has recruited a lot of talent to Arkansas. I mean, he's had top 10 class in recruiting, and he's going to get everybody in the state to come there that's a significant player, Jimmy. And and I think that as we look more and more at the level of commitment again in the SEC from all these different schools that are traditionally not big time basketball powers, that's changed everything. That means that there's, Jimmy, an emphasis on recruiting the top players in their different states. And again, it's making it really difficult for the bottom line for the ACC and other conferences to come down here and get the talent, Jimmy. It ain't like it used to be.
Yeah, I think just college basketball is totally different overall, and it's really coming to a head. This one and done situation has allowed so many programs to be able to make a run in the NCAA tournament. I mean, with the one and done, you have the top players at so many different programs leaving after a year, and it really disrupts the chemistry that those traditional heavyweights are used to having. And it's hard for them to build any continuity when you constantly have to replace your best players after having only been in the program 1 year, and also try to fortify certain positions that you might not have expected to have to replace, because some of these early entries into the NBA draft are unexpected. A lot of these coaches thought they'd be returning, and also with this AAU influence, you have a lot of people, outsiders, that are advising these players that they're good enough to come out and be effective at the NBA level after just a year or two, when they're not.
Yeah, they're not, Jimmy. These guys aren't even close to being ready.
But it's
most
really,
of them. Yeah. Gordon's back on here with us, but Jimmy, you're right. Most of these guys are not ready. That's why the NBA is where it is right now.
But it's benefited the mid-majors. I mean, without the one and done, you would have never had Butler in the national championship game 2 years in a row.
Yeah.
You would have never had VCU playing in the first four and yet making it to the Final Four in the same tournament.
And then
you had Loyola Chicago going to the Final Four 3 years ago.
Yep.
And this team they have this year is better than the Final Four team.
Well, that's gonna be, that'll be fun to watch.
So you have so many more teams that actually have an opportunity to make deep runs in the tournament that, it didn't really exist in the past. And we've talked endlessly this year about how Gonzaga and Baylor are on a different level from everybody else. But that means that there's as many as 30, 40 teams that could have at least an outside shot of making the Final Four if they get a good draw, if they, if they get hot at the right time. And a lot of winning in the tournament depends on the individual matchups between teams.
Yeah.
And experienced teams, I think, really have an advantage now. And that's where you have a lot of these mid-major teams that they don't have guys leaving early. They're staying together 4 or 5 years. And even, some of these middle of the pack teams in the power conferences have teams that stay together for 4 or 5 years. And you can mold a lot of good college basketball players into a very effective unit that can make a deep run in the tournament.
You can. You really can. Gordon, hopefully you got your issues worked out. Come on, let's see if we can hear you now.
Well, I did. My door bolt, my deadbolt couldn't open because it was so cold, and I get in, my dogs jump on me, and I've got them under control.
Okay,
now,
yeah. No, I'm ready. Hey, I'll
know,
tell you, Gordon, how cold it is. My door was frozen to my truck this morning, and it froze the locks. So, I mean,
my convertible's froze over. I can't even get in it.
I would not ride around with the top down, Gordon.
No, I wasn't. I just wanted to get in there. It's just solid ice.
Yeah, it is. Gordon, we want to hear your knowledge, man. Come on. We're talking about, again, keeping these guys together for years and man, again, you like Jimmy and all of us, you study basketball as a science.
No, I agree with him.
Yeah. I mean,
it is.
What about this Ole Miss team? I mean, they started off this year. What's going on? And how big a deal was it for Kermit Davis to be out with the virus for a few weeks? I mean, I would think it was a big deal. He's got assistant coaches.
It hurt him.
Yeah.
But this is a weird year. I mean, as Sheryl Crow says in that song, "Every day is a winding road." These are the days when anything goes right here.
Yeah.
And it's just a crazy time. And like Jimmy mentioned, I mean, there's some teams, I want to say Drake's like, what are they, 20-2 or something like that?
Yeah, but they lost a key starter last week in their first loss to Valparaiso, and he's out for a month.
I saw him lose to Valpo. But I mean, they started off well.
Yeah.
But you got a lot of teams like that kind of kept it together. And the one thing about Ole Miss, they didn't have much preseason. They got a whole group of new players. They had the COVID. But the thing that's happening with them now, if you watch, it's Devontae Shuler. He's playing like he's been expected to play. And the one thing about him, where he was screwing up, he was shooting air balls. He was, shooting bad. And the more I've watched him in these last 2 or 3 weeks, he's going up straight and following through. And he's got his shot back. And when you shoot good, as Gene Bartow one time said, you look good. And they're playing good defense and basically rebounding. I mean, they get every loose ball. They're very scrappy. They get every loose ball and the offensive rebound. Now, they hurt a little bit yesterday against South Carolina, and they were a determined team, but still Ole Miss got them.
Yeah, I mean, South Carolina is not an easy team to beat in Columbia. And, they made the plays that they needed to beat a team they were better than. But I think that maybe the biggest game of the season for them, though, was earlier in the week when they just ran Missouri out of the arena.
And I was there, Jimmy.
Yeah, and they just shut them down. And when you're able to beat a team that prides themselves on playing physical, hard-nosed, defensive basketball, and you're able to score against them, but yet completely shut them down, that has to give a team a lot of confidence.
Look, I'll tell you, I don't know if you've watched Missouri a lot, but the formula to beat them is you watch all their guards. They shoot the ball low. And if you get your hand up on their chest, it bothers them. They can't shoot, they like with their form and all that. But, other teams, you're just letting them jump up and shoot it. Shuler and those guards got in those guards' face and shut them down. And the big guy down low, he's got limited moves, maybe a drop step here and there. But when he got the ball down low, they surrounded him like gnats, and he couldn't get his shots off.
Yeah, I think Tillman is the guy that you really have to stop.
Tillman is very good. He's a 4-year player too.
Yeah. But Pinson is the guy that really is the key to their offense, and he's probably their best 3-point shooter. And when they do try to run transition, and that's where they killed Alabama last week. I mean, he was he really keys that transition game that they have when they choose to use it. And when they choose to use it at the right times, it can really put a team off balance. And I don't think Bama was expecting them to be able to do that because their transition game is so effective. An opponent usually just has to focus on stopping that and not actually taking advantage of transition opportunities when they get them. And that's exactly what Missouri did. But again, though, this is just a wild and crazy league in that really anybody has a chance to beat anybody almost. And we used to say except unless they play Vanderbilt, but now Vandy's won 2 games.
Yeah, and Jimmy,
in the last week.
Let me add a little color to what you said about it being a wild and crazy year. Both of y'all remember the 2 characters on Saturday Night Live. I am Yartuk, and this is my brother, Yartuk Yordanovich. We are 2 wild and crazy guys. I mean, it just reminds me that but my mind just wandered there. But right now, you think about Alabama's basketball team. Petty, Herb Jones, these guys have been together a long time. And look, everybody else is pushing to get that second place. I mean, LSU and Arkansas are tied right now. You got Florida at 6-4, Tennessee at 7-5, Missouri at 6-5, Ole Miss at 7-6. It's the teams that are making up their mind that they're not going to let all the outside distractions slow them down that are making the big runs. Look, Gordon, hang on with us because we want you to be on here. We're going to have Richmond Weaver on from over in Greenville, South Carolina. Does a great podcast called Richmond on Sports, covers Clemson and the ACC. Was on with us yesterday. I had to get off. We didn't have much time, but I wanted to have him back on today, and we are. Let me do this. Say something about one of our sponsors. We'll take a quick commercial break. Then we'll come back with Gordon Ford and Jimmy Hodge here with us on Sidelines.live till 5 p.m. Central today. But Red River Ford in Wynne, Arkansas. They're not open today. Justin Wynn, the general manager, is always on with us on Fridays and Saturdays, but they are open Monday through Saturday, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m. About 45 minutes from Memphis. You're on I-40, get off at the Forest City exit, go 15 minutes, you're there. Highway 64, going back and forth to Heber Springs, to Greer's Ferry, to the lake, half a mile south of 64 by the Walmart in Wynne, Arkansas. Just go south about a half a mile. It's across from Jordan's Exxon, MJ's Exxon, Jordan's Exxon in Wynne, Arkansas. They have got the Fords, the Toyotas. I think Justin said yesterday they had 2 more truckloads of inventory, Ford trucks, Toyota trucks, cars, SUVs. Great people to work with. Rusty Howard, the sales manager. Again, Justin Wynn, the general manager. And one of the members of the Red River Auto Group, John Dobbs Jr., the Dobbs family, synonymous with cars and trucks in the Mid-South. They're committed to making it a great experience. And one last thing, you can get started online, redriverfordtoyota.com, get most of the process done to where when you show up, you can be off the lot 15, 20 minutes with your vehicle, and they deliver. Red River Ford, Toyota, Arkansas. So we're going to take a quick commercial break. Rob Brown here with you, broadcasting live from Ice Station Razorback in Parkin, Arkansas. As I look out on Crowley's Ridge, the snow is coming. The polar bears, no need to buy ice, by the way, at the store, guys. Jimmy Hodge, Gordon Ford, and I will be back. And Richmond Weaver will be on Richmond on Sports. Again, Sidelines.live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. Hello, Shoney. Be right back. Yeah, hey, Gordon, I don't know what was happening. You kept coming on, and when I would try to merge you in with Jimmy, you would drop every time. And I don't know, what kind of phone do you have, an Android or an iPhone? Hello, Gordon.
I think we lost Gordon.
No, Gordon, are you there?
I am here.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
I was asking you. I was saying every time you kept calling in, I would try to merge you with Jimmy, and we lost you every time. Do you have an iPhone, an Android, or what kind of phone do you have?
No, I have a Samsung Galaxy, and it's rebuilt. All my kids have nice phones but me.
You got a Samsung Galaxy. Well, I mean, I'm just wondering.
I pay for a lot of phones, and mine is the cheapest, Rob. I probably need to get another.
Well, I mean, I'm just saying it just kept dropping, and I kept going, well, this is crazy. I mean, no, because the connection here is good, but anyway,
I said, that's what a rebuilt phone does.
Well, I had to get a rebuilt one here recently when I had mine on the tailgate of my truck about, I guess it was December.
Oh, I actually could afford it. I just didn't want to get some fancy phone.
It's disgusting.
Everyone around here has one but me.
It's disgusting. I had it on the tailgate.
Don't get me started on all that.
Oh, yeah, I had it on the tailgate of my truck, and I closed up the tailgate, and it slid down and just crunch like this. You could hear it crunching. And I got a new one, and they sent it to me, and it was a rebuilt phone, and they were going to send me a new one because they admitted, yeah, they're rebuilt. But yeah, and I know how you feel. Okay, how much longer, Audrey? Okay, a minute. Okay, but Gordon, yeah, stay with Richmond Weaver should be calling us here right when we come out of the break, and he's, like I said, he was on yesterday. He covers. I met him in Atlanta back in October at Melt. He covers the ACC, basketball, football. Big Clem. He's a Clemson graduate, but we'll have some good talk about ACC. But I mean, I just think
before we get back on, Jimmy, I've changed my rankings in the SEC. It's Alabama and Arkansas right now.
Yeah, I mean, that was a huge win Arkansas had not only yesterday. I did not expect them to...
10 seconds, guys.
Okay.
Say that when we come back on.
I got LSU at 3 now.
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you on the Sunday afternoon www.sidelines.live wrap-up show with Gordon Ford and Jimmy Hodge. We're talking SEC college basketball. We're going to be joined in just a minute by Richmond Weaver from over in Greenville, South Carolina. Richmond on sports. And hey, Gordon, go ahead. You said something during the break. You've adjusted your rankings in the SEC, and let everybody hear that.
Yes, I definitely have. I've got Bama 1. I've got Arkansas 2. And then 3, I've got LSU. And then I guess Tennessee and Missouri, however they fall.
Jimmy, give us your rankings.
Well, Alabama's got to be number 1. I think, well, with the week Arkansas had, wins at Lexington, although they tried everything possible to blow it in the last 3 minutes. But that win and then winning unexpectedly at Missouri, yeah, I could see you, putting them at number 2. And LSU, I mean, they can put the ball through the hoop. It's just a question of each night if they're going to decide if defense is optional or not,
Yeah.
And they certainly did a great job yesterday against Tennessee. And I could go along with those rankings at 1, 2, 3, and then these other teams, you just never know what you're going to get. I mean, Tennessee absolutely ran Kansas out of the Thompson Bowling Center a couple of weeks ago in the Big 12 Challenge. And then, they've had a couple outings where they look like they've never played before.
I think
you just have no idea.
I'm going to say this. This is some breaking news about LSU, that they have picked the game up and playing Ole Miss on Wednesday night when that game had been canceled. So they picked the game up, and this just happened about 58 minutes ago.
Yeah.
That Ole Miss is going to go to LSU and play them there.
Yeah. Well, that'll
be
big.
A canceled game.
Here's my thing about Tennessee. I'll add is that I think that's a maturity thing. I just don't think they have the mature leadership that they need, because when you're going out and you have that kind of talent and you're not putting out, they need to fix that. And that may not be something that can be fixed at this point in the season. But if you look at Rick Barnes and Tennessee's basketball teams, they've been, in the driver's seat in the SEC in the last 3 years, a couple of times, and flat out blew it. That's a leadership thing, and that starts at the top.
Well, they're depending on young players also. I mean, they've just gotten Springer back, the freshman point guard, and when he was out for about 10 days, 2 weeks, they certainly struggled. And then Vescovi was also injured, missed some time, so they really had some issues there. And then they have Keon Johnson, another freshman, and again. When and we've talked about it with Auburn, I mean, they're the youngest team in Division I out of 350 teams. Anytime freshmen are playing a key role in your success or lack of it, it often results from the fact that they're just now for the first time trying to make it through the grind of a Power 5 conference schedule, and they're probably about 3/4 of the way through it right now, and that's why I think you often see these uneven performances. And again, the same things happen, in the ACC. I mean, you've had, Virginia, who's been the most steady. That's because they know exactly how they're going to play every game. They play outstanding defense, and they've developed a couple of shooters who can hit the three and make shots in critical times, and Huff, the 7-footer, has just come through big time for them this year, and he's a 7-footer that can shoot the three. So again, there's just a lot of unpredictability in this entire college basketball equation, and again, we're talking honestly 35 to 40 teams that could actually have a shot at the Final Four to join Gonzaga and Baylor. And unless those two teams I just mentioned have some kind of significant injury, I just don't see any way they're not going to be in the Final Four. But with all that being said, it's just going to be a crazy ending the next 4 to 5 weeks.
Yeah, let me ask you this too, and I'll throw this to Gordon. Where would you how big of a difference did Mike Slive basically putting a mandate out there to the SEC schools get serious with basketball? And we've got to fulfill these commitments to CBS and ESPN. We cannot continue to put a crappy product out there. Kentucky and maybe a couple other teams, Florida for sure. But now, top to bottom, Vanderbilt's starting to win. A&M doesn't have the players this year. You're right. But Jerry Stackhouse, they gave him a long-term contract, but I don't know. I still wonder about Vanderbilt's commitment. And you're right. Ben Howland has been a disappointment considering the resume that he has. But top to bottom, rank the SEC, Gordon, just compare this league to the ACC this year and the Big 12 and the Big 10. What do you think?
I think the Big 10, I haven't seen enough of them. I would say would be 1, and I'd say the SEC would be 2, because with the exception of the ACC, I mean, you don't have Duke and Carolina. You have Florida State, which is your best team, and they're a good team. And you don't really have powerhouses in there. You know, the Big 10, you got Michigan, you got Iowa, and you got some teams like that. The Big 12, the SEC wanted to challenge there. So,
Yeah.
You know, you had Kansas, who they're all right, but you have Baylor, which is a super team. And, you know, there's not, you know, I mean, TCU's pretty good, but who was it played them? I want to say it was
Arkansas.
I can't remember who it was when they played them there.
Yeah, Arkansas was very
beat
fortunate
them.
to beat them. No, Missouri beat them in double overtime.
Missouri
they did a
beat them, that's
3
correct.
at the buzzer
you-
at regulation.
Yep.
Right, yeah.
And then you've got another team in the Big 12, which to me is one of the teams that, you know, if they're on TV, I'm going to watch them, is Texas Tech.
Yeah, and they beat
have a
LSU.
style of ball.
LSU
You know,
had
they
that
beat
lead.
LSU at LSU, and LSU had that game, and
Yeah.
they came back, and you know, that being Texas Tech, and I like the way they play. And Chris Beard is a great coach, and they have a style of ball that no matter who he has, transitions. And I tell you, there's another guy, and I'm dating myself, who had that type of team, and they had a style which no matter where they went, with the exception of the 1 year he was with the San Antonio Spurs, Larry Brown. It's just a style that, you know, you're cohesive, and it's just different. You know, I can't really put words into it, but you got certain teams that play certain ways that's hard for you to play against.
Yeah, I think I would have to go with the Big 12 in the number 2 spot. The reason I say that is I honestly think that besides Baylor, I think Lon Kruger's one of the most underrated coaches in college basketball.
He's a great guy. We interviewed him about 30 years ago.
Yeah, I mean, he's won everywhere he's ever coached, including his alma mater, Kansas State, and took Florida to the Final Four after that. But anyway,
yep. And left the players at Illinois that went to the Final Four.
I mean, he hated trying to recruit in that Chicago cesspool, which is why he left Illinois. But anyway,
well, I think he left Illinois to take the Atlanta Hawks job, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, but nobody had to encourage him. He didn't care for having to recruit in Chicago at all and deal with all those characters. But anyway, he like I said, he's done a great job there. And you know, when they beat Alabama a couple of weeks ago in the Big 12 Challenge, they did it without 2 key starters, including their leading scorer, Austin Reeves, and they have 5 wins over AP ranked, I think, top 10 teams. In fact, they were the first team since 2014 to win 3 consecutive games. It was within about a week's time against Associated Press top 10 teams. And so he's done a great job with that team. I think they're poised to really make a run in the tournament along with Baylor. As far as anybody in the SEC making a deep run in the tournament, I think it's Alabama. If anybody other than that, I don't see anybody making a deep run. Potentially a team, and you've mentioned them, that could is LSU, because they can really put the ball in the hoop, but defensively they can be absolutely awful.
Good, Jimmy, because they're big. They got guys that can shoot it, they can rebound, and they can do all the things. They have Eric Musselman, who, is a great coach in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, it's possible. And Arkansas is one of those teams, they would have to get the right draw, and that, of course, that's the key to the tournament anyway, is matchups. You might match up against a top 10 team that everybody thinks you have no chance against, but you match up well with them, and your team's comfortable playing them. And then the next round, you can play a team that was unranked for a good portion of the season, but your weaknesses are where their strengths are, like maybe the front court, or they have experienced ball handlers, and you like to play pressure defense, and it doesn't even phase them. So there's all kinds of intangibles involved. But I think those two teams have a serious chance to make a deep run in the tournament. And then, of course, we were just talking last week. I mean, what the virus can do to interrupt the momentum of teams. I mean, Michigan just played their first game in 23 days today. They were behind most of the first half, bounced back, and went on I think 13-1 run to win at Wisconsin today. And then you've got, it's just happening all over the place. Baylor is going to be on the shelf for another week and a half because there's virus issues involving them. You got Memphis was supposed to play Houston today, and that game's postponed. So, and we haven't really mentioned how this virus can factor in. It can hit you at the worst possible time, and you wonder how the officials that run the NCAA tournament are going to deal with that. If certain teams, I'm sure that bubble environment is going to do a lot to control any potential problems, but this thing has been so predictable, and we've had so many games postponed this year. There's just there's no way of knowing, and that just factors further in to what might happen in the tournament. And then on top of this, Gordon, we hadn't even talked about the number of players that, if they choose, seniors that can come back for another year if they want, because this is a free year for everybody, eligibility wise.
Well, wait, here's a question I'm going to throw in for you. This is crazy, but wonder if any of these guys are going to quit. I mean, you can call it opting out, whatever, it's quitting, and say, well, I'm not going to, that's my point. I'm saying you're not going to see that. And that's what makes me so mad about them doing it in football. I just don't see anybody doing that in basketball. And that's why this stuff better stop in football. And I think you're going to start seeing an effort made. This name, image, and likeness thing, man, this is dangerous. It's like smoking around, a gas pump when you're putting gas in your truck. Okay. You're stupid. We better get a handle on this. And basketball, to me, these conference tournaments, and Jimmy, you said yesterday, you feel like there's an 80% chance that we'll have the conference tournaments. And I'm with you. I've been throwing it out there though, that I can see the NCAA working behind the scene, like the Wizard of Oz, behind the curtain, pulling the strings to pressure them. Don't have your conference tournament because we've got to have our big tournament, because that's where they make 90% of their budget, which is around $1 billion. Jake Crane really harped on that. It's a business. Okay. The NCAA guys, we need to kick them to the curb. We need something better, something more fair, more equitable. But hey, and I'm just looking at the standings. This is a question I'm going to throw to you, Gordon. Michigan has been off for 3 weeks or so. Yeah, you're right. But they're still 9-1 in the Big Ten. And you look at the overall league, the Big Ten has got Ohio State. I mean, we know about Illinois, Iowa. It's a really good league. Wisconsin. Do you think there's going to be some real? This could be like, who's selected to the college football playoff. A lot of controversy if you start saying, well, this team, even though they only played 7 games fewer than this team, but when they did play, they were really good. I can see the politics coming in and there being some real controversy there, Gordon.
No, I think it could be a controversy, but you know what? I mean, if it's Michigan or somebody like that, they want to see them in the tournament. They want to see them, and that's all there is to it. You can't deny that top politics aren't played on some of these bigger schools. I'll tell you right now, if they could figure a way to get Kentucky in the NCAA tournament, they sure would do it. Think about that.
Yeah.
Did you all see Mitch Barnhart?
They're thinking right now what they could do.
Yeah, I saw Mitch Barnhart on the SEC Network this morning, and he's on some selection committee, and he's talking about Kentucky, and you're starting to already hear it. Listen to SEC Network. That win over Auburn. What you just felt like something just exploded. That this
isn't even a big win.
It wasn't a big
nobody.
Exactly. Auburn's not very good. I mean, they're a young team. They're talented, but they're not a great team yet. Those guys haven't played together long enough to become a great team. Forget how much talent they have. They're not a great team yet. They will be, I believe, eventually. But you're already seeing it with Kentucky. Remember Rick Pitino's 16-12 team that got an NCAA bid. Look, I don't want to hear it.
They deserved it. They played their way in. This team has nothing. There's nothing good you can say about them.
No, there's not.
I don't know if you watched the Arkansas-Kentucky game at the end. I mean, if you watched the Auburn game, they tried to give it away. They got themselves back in the game against Arkansas, and threw them the ball right there with 2 seconds left.
Yeah.
I mean, crap like that you can't do and get in the tournament. What do they say, Jimmy? It's the eye test. That was a bad eye test there. Would you agree?
Well, it would have been a disaster for Arkansas because they had a 12-point lead with like 2 minutes left. At Kentucky hit 5 threes in a row to actually take the lead with like 15 seconds left. And Arkansas got a very fortunate foul call at the end, which they took advantage of to make both free throws, and then they went ahead one. And like I said, Sarr, who had made like about 4 threes in the game, a 7-footer, why they have him dribbling the ball up into front court and passing the ball to somebody else is just beyond me. And they intercepted the pass. It was the craziest thing I've ever seen. You got to either have Mintz or Askew dribbling the ball and trying to find a way to get the ball to Sarr.
But I'll tell you this, at the end of the day, think about this. I was telling this guy back in the late 70s, and the Lakers were kind of big then. That's before they got Magic. I told people this, that more people knew who Jay Shidler was than Norm Nixon, who was an NBA player. That's how big Kentucky basketball is. You know their guys. You know they've been recruited. I mean, you can name more Kentucky players than you probably can Lakers players. Would you agree with that, Jimmy?
Oh, yeah. Well, I used to play one of my favorite games to play almost every year with anybody that follows college basketball. It doesn't matter what kind of year Indiana's having. I'll guarantee you the average college basketball fan can name more Indiana starters than they can Purdue starters.
Well,
virtually every year.
Guys, Indiana, speaking of that program, I mean, they have just become irrelevant, and that's hard to believe. They are considered historically one of the blue bloods in college basketball. How the hell does that happen? You know how that happens? Lack of commitment from the top. And, I'll
tell you how it happened. They got on probation.
Yeah, I know.
And then Tom Crean was there, had some terrible years. And it's been hard for them to get back after the deal with Kelvin Sampson.
Yeah.
And people lost interest when you start getting on probation. With the exception of Kentucky, they went and hired Rick Pitino when they got him on probation with Eddie Sutton. When the Emory bag opened up, and put it this way, Emory went out of business after that.
Yeah, but it's inexcusable that they've let this program slide the way they have. And now, you know what? Their football program is on the rise. They're becoming, I don't know if they're going to be what Wisconsin is, but Barry Alvarez put Wisconsin on a path, and they are consistently one of the better teams in the Big Ten and the country.
Well, Tom Allen's a great coach.
He is.
And he's done a tremendous job there. But basketball wise, I got to say this: that was really unfair what they did to Kelvin Sampson, because now texting recruits is normal procedure. How they attach such severe penalties to that, I will never understand. And
you got to agree, Jimmy. That's one of the things that took Indiana down, because they hammered them.
No
hard.
question. Oh, they did. And then Crean, he knew the first 3 or 4 years they were just going nowhere, because, again, he just had his hands tied, and it took a while. And then really Kentucky really built momentum with those one-and-done classes. And don't even get me started on the academic eligibility rules for one-on-one for one-and-done players. All you have to do is pass 6 credit hours in the fall semester, and you're good for the whole year. It's just insane.
But Kentucky had people walking on back then too that were, high level players. So, I don't know how they did it. They got a bunch of walk-ons.
Well, they ran that first year. They ran off all those guys that were on scholarships. What they did, so that they made room for Wall and for Cousins. And for that.
I'm
for
talking
that
back when Rick Pitino took them over.
Yeah. Yeah. He was playing with walk-ons. That's how come Farmer and Feldhouse,
good walk-ons, yeah,
and Woods, yeah. They basically, those guys are the ones that stayed. Everybody else left, and they retired their jerseys after they had that great year and lost on that buzzer beater shot by that buzzer beater shot by Leitner, and maybe the best college basketball game ever, in the Elite Eight. So yeah, there's but Indiana, they've had some coaching turmoil. It started from the time they got rid of Bobby Knight, and then the hiring of Mike Davis, and
who did a bad job. He took him the championship, but he didn't recruit well.
No, he didn't recruit well. And but again, though, he had to take that job because the players said they were all leaving if either Davis or Treelor didn't get the job. So they were kind of in a bind, and he did get that team to the championship game. Yeah, but it has been it's been an absolute mess. And Archie Miller, who's I think he's a really good coach, but he's just been in a situation where it's just become tough to win, and the Big Ten right now is just from top to bottom. It's just a really tough
Plus
conference
the rise
to
of
win
Michigan
in.
State in there too.
And then this year again, that's another team that's been killed by the virus. They've just missed so much practice time. When you have gaps of 2 or 3 weeks, you can't even practice. Your quarantine. It's just hard to develop a team. So again, that is just a factor that, people just tend to forget that it's going to be lingering until we actually get through this season in the first weekend of April. So, it's going to be just like I said, a wild and a crazy journey. But the tournament should be unbelievable. And the thing about it too, in a single elimination format, you can have that one game where, maybe you're playing your C game and you're playing an opponent who's on their A+ game, and anything can happen. So, these last 3 weeks or so of the regular season, followed by the conference tournaments, there's going to be intense competition to get in to those NCAA tournament spots, because you're still going to have those 34 automatic conference bids.
Yeah.
Or is it 30, Gordon?
I think it's 34.
The smaller conferences.
It's 34. Yeah. But guys,
yeah.
I'm excited about the tournament. and they are going to have it in Indianapolis, and everything's going to be within a 50-mile radius, having it at the arena there where the Colts play, and it's going to be fun. I'm just glad we're having it. And I think the NCAA knows that they'll be out of business. They cannot afford to not have this tournament. And so everybody is going to be on pins and needles going into the tournament, and that's why it's going to be interesting to watch. But look, they're already floating the question out there. Are the conferences going to let their regular season champion be the automatic bid or the tournament champion? They're putting that out there because they know some conferences are going to cancel their tournaments. I mean, look back in football. Hell, the Mid-America Conference canceled football, and then the Big Ten followed suit. Really? And then everybody started jumping up and down like a bunch of little babies back August 9th. Oh, the Mid-America Conference, they're going to suddenly dictate what goes on in college football, then the Big Ten, and then the Pac-12 with Larry Scott is so inept, they ought to be doing inept commercials. You know what I mean? I mean, good gosh. And now that, they're going to get a new conference commissioner, but we better, discipline is the key word. And whatever you got to do, safety-wise, do it. But I just hope that we don't have the same people that are driving that narrative of doom and gloom, because you can't keep treading water forever. And that's where we are with a lot of what's going on in college football, basketball, whatever. But look, baseball's already come out. It's game on. Softball, it's on. Okay? The NCAA last year, the way they did it, they just totally surprised everybody, caught everybody off guard. But that's why we need a better, I don't even like the term governing body. We need as little government involvement as possible in regular government, top to bottom. Same thing with the NCAA. Most of the people at the NCAA headquarters, guys, y'all know it, are Big Ten people. And the fact that Kevin Warren, the Big Ten commissioner, still has a job is encouraging for all the sloths and slouches out there in the country and incompetent boobs, rubes, and idiots, okay? Because he showed no leadership, guys. None. He had a son on the football team at Mississippi State, and he tried to shut down Big Ten football. And Jimmy, you pointed it out brilliantly, what Trevor Lawrence from Clemson and the nationwide social media, Twitter, and whatever it took. And then if it wasn't for Ohio State, Iowa, and Nebraska raising hell, and all these parents and President Trump
and
who went
Donald
there.
Trump.
Yeah, Donald Trump.
He jumped in there.
Yeah, Donald Trump went in there. And if it hadn't been for them, they would not have played football, because you've got willing accomplices like Christine Brennan and other little whiny cupcake snowflake journalists like her out there saying when they did announce they were going to play a football schedule, this was the darkest day in Big Ten history. Please spare us, okay? Hey, put your lip over your head and swallow, okay? Get out of here with that crap. I mean, we've got to play. We've got to find a way to play the games, okay? And do it safely and stuff, but don't make stuff up. Don't make stuff up, because we need the opportunity to play. And you know what? Sports are good. And look, think about the times in football and in basketball too, when the players would go home for breaks or to and get out of the protective bubbles that they were in at their respective universities during football season. It typically resulted in trouble. You talked about 40 LSU players after they lost to Auburn on Halloween, went to a Halloween party when they got back. Well, that really helped out. I mean, you already had a football team that had just been destroyed on the field against Auburn and was struggling overall. I mean, in defending national champions typically don't play that poorly. I know they lost a lot of players, but man, a lot of these guys got $1 million worth of ability and $1.98 worth of brain. Okay. You better get that ability matched with brain power. Use your heads, people. And I mean, we want to have these sports What good does it do to have everybody sitting around scared, waiting for the other shoe to drop? Wouldn't you agree?
I agree.
I mean, it's just
Yeah.
ridiculous.
And Gordon, I had a question for you. Yesterday, Mitch was talking about in regard to Kentucky that with their record right now, which is 6-13, that
mathematically eliminate. I don't know if I believe that or not.
I'd never heard of that because we'd had years. I remember once, I think Southern or Mississippi Valley State was like 8-20, and they won the tournament. They got in, and if you won the conference tournament, that's why they have them.
Well, you gotta have those conference.
Maybe if they didn't win the conference tournament, that's the only thing I could think of, because I heard that too, and he
because
said
that's the automatic bid,
and I've not heard of that rule.
Yeah,
I'm not saying he's wrong,
right?
But, I have not heard of that, and I'm with you. I don't know if I believe that or not.
Hey, real quick,
because the ACC, and to this very day, the SEC tournament, SEC. The winner of their conference tournament gets the conference bid. Now, I couldn't disagree with that more. When a team goes through an 18-20 regular season game grind and you're the champion, that should be the automatic berth.
Hey, guys, Richmond Weaver is on with us.
If they were 10, and I don't think they can win a whole lot more games. Okay, I think they got like 5 left. And how many have they won? 6?
6-13.
Okay,
that's their record.
Let's just say they win 4 out of the next 5, and they're 10 and whatever. Okay, and they win the tournament, they got to go in.
Yeah, because that's automatic bid.
Well, it will be. Look, let's do this. Richmond Weaver's on with us, guys, and I know he was supposed to be on at 3:30, got delayed with something. We're glad to have you, Richmond. You hear what we're talking about? These automatic bids. The regular season grind. That means it should mean something versus the conference tournament champion. And Kentucky right now is having a terrible season, but you can already see the momentum beginning to swell to get them in the tournament, somehow carry them across the finish line. But Richmond Weaver, you're over in Greenville, South Carolina, cover Clemson, the ACC and all. What are your thoughts on that? Because this is not a typical year for the ACC, especially with Carolina and Duke basketball.
Agreed 100%. And gentlemen, thank you so much for your patience. And I apologize for being late, just taking care of some family matters here on Sunday. So I apologize.
No, don't worry about it. I'm just glad. I was just going to say, if we needed to reschedule, we do it. But man, thank you for taking time out to be on here with us. Do not worry about it at all. By the way, my wife was telling me, we just been to Walmart, drove through the snow over in Wynn, and she goes, "Oh, we left a whole bag up there at the checkout thing. Where's the receipt?" And I said, "Well, I already threw it in the fire." So I get to go back to Walmart's, as they call it over here, and get you. But by the way, they do keep a running receipt of everything that you buy. So hopefully the clerks will be able to help us. I think they will. But man, Richmond, let's hear what you're saying. We'll give you time and love hearing from you.
Yeah, well, you might have to put your sales hat on over there at Walmart to try to convince them that that's your stuff there in that bag that you left.
Yep.
But in terms of this season and just how things are rolling out, and obviously you can get into that conversation about automatic bids and even looking at a team like Kentucky who has been struggling, but maybe now they are finding their way a little bit. And I think a lot of it has to do with these teams that are very young, and especially we know what Kentucky is in terms of how they're built. One and dones, guys that are not going to be there. They're not going to have a situation where they have strong leadership from upperclassmen. It's all going to be about talented individuals. And we're even seeing that with the Duke team as well, that has been very inconsistent. And I think a lot of that has to do with that these guys didn't get a chance to practice during the offseason, didn't get a chance over the summer to be together, hanging out, playing like they normally would do, and developing that type of chemistry. And now, as we're getting later on into the season, maybe it's starting to happen, from that perspective. And can Kentucky now get on some type of magical run? Because we know they're talented. And if they can pull it all together, does that give them that Cinderella story, so to speak, in the SEC to get an automatic bid? And I still love the fact that you do have the opportunity of the drama that in a conference tournament, you do have the ability of winning your conference tournament to get to the big dance. Now, in the Power 5 conferences, you still have the opportunity where you're probably going to get multiple bids. It's where these mid-major programs, especially around here in this area, the Southern Conference, the Big South, if you have an upset in the conference tournament, that's probably it. Your main team, say like a Winthrop in the Big South Conference, has only lost one game this year and is by far head and shoulders above anybody else in the Big South and can compete with some of the Power 5 teams. I'm convinced. I've watched them play. I've called some of their games, and I'm telling you, they are really well coached and they're very talented. But if they get upset, they're out in terms of Big South. Maybe Winthrop would get an at-large bid, but right now I don't know if they would, even though I think they could beat some teams. So it's hard to say from a pure basketball purist standpoint. I do love rewarding the regular season because that is the grind, and the conference tournament. It's really all about somebody that gets hot for a few days, and the grind of the tournament, especially this year, can really showcase what the team has had to go through. The problem is that some teams might not be playing the same number of games, and that's where you get into the situation. How do you judge team versus team if they weren't able to play the same type of regular season games?
I'm going to throw something at you in Richmond. I want your response, and then I'm going to Gordon and Jimmy answer it. I almost think, sound like a conspiracist, but it's almost like Duke and North Carolina aren't very good this year. They almost tried to walk off after they lost had some embarrassing losses early in the season, but it's almost like they're trying to minimize the damage because they're not very good. And neither one of them have played. They've both of them have missed a lot of games. I mean, Carolina's 7-5, they're 12-7. Duke, especially 6-6, 8-8, especially Duke. And I love Coach K, but I think they are so afraid of damaging that brand. And Jake Crane pointed this out yesterday, and I agree. The SEC, when Mike Slive several years ago said, get off your asses and start emphasizing basketball. We cannot continue to serve, CK's coffee shop ribeyes or steaks like you get at 3 a.m. with a dozen eggs, which is, you're trying to kill yourself, and try to compare that to Ruth's Chris Steakhouse. We got to get a serious commitment. And it just seems that the politics, and you're going to have your willing accomplices in the sports media. And I'm a huge Dick Vitale fan, but I guarantee you, Dick Vitale, some of those other minions out there will make every possible case for those teams to be in the tournament. I understand the brand. People love to watch them. You got to have eyeballs. But as far as the best teams, I think it's just like when you're getting beat in a race and you quit or you feign an injury that you got hurt. I think that's what's going on with those schools. What do you think? And is that a feeling among other people over in the ACC, or am I bonkers?
No, you're not bonkers. I would have to say it's interesting because that conversation has come up, especially when Duke decided to completely pause basically in the month of December, the rest of their non-conference games.
Oh, how convenient.
Yes, and only play the conference games. And I would have to say I was somewhat in the mindset of when everybody decided that, okay, they were going to move forward with playing games, it was either you're all in or you're all out. You can't pick and choose which games you want to play and which you don't. And there's a lot of frustration, especially in the ACC, of other teams, obviously, outside of the state of North Carolina, that took offense to what Duke was doing. That because there was no situation where they had significant amounts of positive tests that would lead to pauses. It was just a voluntary pause, just like the Duke women's basketball program. They just decided they weren't going to play the rest of the season. And I actually was okay with that. All right, you made the choice. You're all out, but not this half in, half out situation. And that's where I'm not a fan of that. And I think that was wrong for teams to be able to placate and pick and choose what part of the season that they wanted to play in. It's either you're going to play or you're not going to play. Now, if you have pauses, Now that's out of your control to a certain degree, based on situations with other teams. But I definitely felt that Duke was in a position of really trying to show their muscle and power within the ACC, and would that lead to other teams doing the same thing? Unfortunately, other teams did not. They wanted to continue to play. But I don't think if Duke continues how they are right now, I don't think there's any way they're in the NCAA tournament. Even if they finish just 500 in the ACC, I just don't see it happening. They're just not that good enough team. And I think there's some other teams, and especially this year, why would you not just go ahead and allow these other teams the opportunity instead of Duke?
Yeah, and let me say this too. This is all part of that opting out crap. It's quitting. Call it what it is. Again, I will tell you right now, ask anybody in the real world. My brother-in-law, Kurt Ham, 26 years in the Marine Corps. You think he had the option, guys, to opt out or whatever, quit? I'm not feeling it. I'm hungover. I'm not going with y'all to Fallujah. Good luck. Tell me how it goes. Come on. Stop it. And this is what's going on. We're going to stop and start when we feel like it. Just like, remember when we were kids, you'd be playing horse or you'd be playing and you'd beat the best guy in the neighborhood. You got him. And then he'd go, oh, my mom said I had to be home early for dinner. Come on. People can see through this stuff. Call them out. I'm a huge Coach K fan. I really do. I like him. But let's face it. They have quite the elitist attitude over there. Gordon Ford, come on in with this and back me up or disagree.
About Duke?
No, about what I'm saying about the ACC and about them, conveniently stopping and starting, just like what Richmond and I are saying.
No, I think it's terrible. Even a lot of SEC and Big 12 teams are talking about they shouldn't do that type of thing. The thing is, I agree with your guest there, is that Duke is not very good, and they just decided, hey, man, we're just not going to play anymore.
Yeah.
What didn't they cancel their whole women's schedule?
Well, and Vanderbilt's been doing it too.
You can't just wake up one day and say to yourself, I'm in a conference. I've been there. When I'm winning, things are good. Well, it's not going so well right now, and we've got COVID. And you know what? We just want to not play, cancel the season. You can't do that.
Well, they're doing it. And
the Big Ten tried it until, they had a revolt up there. It's kind of like, people rioting in Oregon or something, But, you just can't do that. It's just not consistent. It's just, it's the way people are today in somewhat, but, opting out and all that. But no, you can't stop yourself in a conference and pull yourself out or not play or whatever.
Yeah.
So that's all I have to say about it.
And it can't be rewarded. If the NCAA rewards it or any conference rewards it, they are only encouraging this garbage and they're enablers, okay? You know what? You feed a stray dog, he's going to keep coming back. All right? You can't do it. Jimmy Hodge, what do you think?
Well, I think when Duke was playing their pre-conference schedule and they lost to Michigan State at home and, they just struggled right off the bat. And then Coach K announced that they would be just canceling the rest of their pre-conference schedule. If you'll remember, Nate Oates called him out immediately and said, I seriously doubt they would have been making that move had they not have lost those games. And that was the first, Power 5 coach I'd ever seen, at least in recent times, out Coach K for making that move, and rightfully so. And he didn't really bark back very much.
He didn't bark back at all. I can remember.
Yeah. It just is what it is. But yeah, there's no doubt about it. Unless Duke wins the ACC tournament, they're not going to be in.
Yeah, Richmond, what do you think? Is Clemson? I know Clemson's playing better. Who's got the momentum in that league right now?
Still right now, it's Virginia's league. In all honesty, Florida State got a scare yesterday with Wake Forest at home, but Florida State pulls out the victory in overtime. But right now, it's still Virginia, but you've got to look at a team like Clemson, who is now probably playing themselves into a secure position for the NCAA tournament based on not just their conference record, but also their non-conference record. As you guys mentioned, Nate Oates, Clemson did beat Alabama this year. And that was a huge win for Clemson to be able to do that. Obviously, Alabama is playing really, really well and a surprise team in all of America. And Clemson was also able to beat Purdue, Mississippi State, beat Maryland. So they've got all of these other Power 5 non-conference wins that add up to a really nice resume. When you look at their net rankings, they'll probably move up within, the top 45 now. They were sitting at 48 this weekend. So I would say a team like that, would be somebody that could get an at-large bid, because I just don't see Clemson being built to win the ACC tournament. Now, again, any team can make a run in a given tournament, but I just don't see Clemson being built that way to do that. But outside of that, Virginia Tech is the other team that I think people are really sleeping on. They obviously are ranked, but I don't think people are giving them enough credit in what Mike Young has been able to do there as well. But I just don't see Duke being a team that's going to make the tournament. And North Carolina is teetering right now. That was a tough game against Virginia, and they didn't play well at all. It'll be interesting to see, how they come back out in the next game. But it's also depending on how some of these teams can they finish the rest of the season, to be honest with you, because of COVID issues.
Yeah, but it just seems to me the stopping and starting because things aren't going your way, that's more symptomatic of a society that awards participation trophies, man.
Yeah, but I guess my question is then, but we're having these pauses in every program.
Yeah.
And it's not, I don't think a lot of these programs are wanting to do that. I know Clemson had a 2-week pause and they came back and suffered 3 humiliating losses because they just couldn't get back into their rhythm after a 5-game winning streak.
Yeah.
And, I know they didn't want to. This is more of this whole overarching theme that you have one positive test and contact tracing and you can't proceed with life almost.
Yeah.
And I think they have to follow just the how things are right now, that sports are not as important. So you have to pause.
I understand that, but it's not just the ACC. It is conferences around the country. And the one school in the SEC that's been the quickest to stop and start has been Vanderbilt.
Yeah, well, I will say one thing about Clemson. They were 9-1 before they had that week and a half stoppage. And then as Richmond said, they came back from that 10-11 day halt, and they just had 3 horrible losses in a row. They haven't been the team they were, although now they bounced back, and I think they won 3 in a row. They completely throttled North Carolina, and they're back on, I think, a 3-game winning streak, thanks to the fact that they have unlimited banking hours in Clemson. To
late night here in that state.
Yeah, to beat Georgia Tech there, But how close do you think Clemson is starting to get back to the way they were playing earlier in the year?
Yeah, I think they are really starting to get back based on what I'm seeing defensively. And that's where we saw them really struggle after that COVID pause. Now, some of it has to do with how offense can get your defense going, and then vice versa. Defense can get your offense going. But for Clemson, they couldn't do either one after that pause. And I think right now what we're seeing is that defense is really helping their offense get going. And that's been the biggest difference, what I've been able to see, just what they were able to do, shutting down North Carolina, also shutting down Syracuse from an offensive standpoint. And Clemson has held 5 teams this year under 20 points in the first half. That's impressive defense there. That's when you're getting into the likes of what Virginia can do on defense, where Clemson and Virginia are number 1 and number 2 in the ACC in scoring defense. So you can see now how Clemson, their scoring defense is hovering around 62 points per game. But in that 3-game losing streak, those teams are averaging 80 points a game. And that's just not indicative of a Clemson Brad Brownell coach defensive team. So that's why I think there's optimism right now for Clemson to be able to finish out the season on a very strong note, and also based on that the teams that they have lined up for the rest of the conference schedule, no team is above 500. So it works out really well in Clemson's schedule perspective that they can finish out very strong.
Yeah, and look, it's common sense. You want to be safe. Nobody wants to get sick. People just, again, you can't live your life in fear. But look, I'm going to ask you about Virginia real quick. You think about this is the 3rd season. I mean, the 2018, 2019 season, they won the national championship. The 1920, we don't have one. So they're the longest, like you said, they're still the reigning national champion.
They are.
And that kind of basketball that they play, that Tony Bennett plays, it's not all that appealing for people that like a fast-paced game because they play defense so well. Fundamentally, they're rock solid, but all they do is win. And it's got to be driving North Carolina and Duke, who have much more talented rosters, and Louisville, and I'm sure Clemson. But they have talent. It's not that they don't. But
Virginia has a lot of talent.
They have a lot of talent, but it just doesn't look like, your typical running and, scoring 80, 90, 100 points a game. But fundamentally, they're sound. You're right. Because when you do play them, you go, they're not an untalented team. They're coached so well, but really they're dominating the ACC. And North Carolina, again, since that loss to Auburn in the Sweet 16 2 years ago, they're playing about, I think they're 26 and 25 overall.
Yeah, and it's surprising when you see the blue blood, so to speak, in the ACC that are like that. And in all reality, it is better when college basketball has some of the top programs And the ACC is better when North Carolina and Duke are at the top. Now, this year is a situation where the ACC is really showcasing just how deep they are from that perspective. But we all love seeing the best teams compete in the best situations. Same with football. I mean, it's good when college football has Auburn as one of the best teams. It's good when college football has Florida State, Miami as one of the best teams. We do want to see that. But I think right now we are just seeing somewhat of a passing of the guard that maybe it's not Duke and North Carolina that are always going to be the top programs in the ACC. Because I'm telling you, at Florida State as well, what Leonard Hamilton is doing down there, that's another team that people just continue to ignore. But they just continue to win as well and have talented people like a Scotty Barnes who hits a layup with a half a second left to send it into overtime yesterday, and he's going to be top 10 pick in the NBA draft, a one and done type of guy. And so I think it's great that the ACC is much deeper now.
Yeah, it's fun. And Jimmy, you were hitting on something yesterday before Richmond had to go about the 10-year, the long-term commitment and what can happen. Talk about that.
Yeah, well, talking about Brad Brownell, I mean, he's been at Clemson now. It doesn't seem like it. I think this is his 11th season, and in many cases, with the coach, with the amount of money coaches are making that now in the Power 5 conferences, there tends to be a lot of pressure, and yet the Clemson administration has really hung with him, and he's only had one losing season in those 11 years, and during most of that 11 years, except for the last couple, the ACC was the toughest league in college basketball. It's just the last couple of years where you've started to see a bit of a slide, and yet he's again his teams are competitive, and I think what maybe can cause fan bases, especially at a football school, to be a little wary if you're not quote unquote winning big, is that Brad coaches a style of basketball that you kind of see from Gene Cady and Conzo Martin. They play tough, physical, intense, hard-nosed defense. And many of those games aren't the most aesthetically pleasing to watch. You're not going to see these 90 to 85 games or anything like that. But when it comes to the end result, and you're competitive every week, I mean, I think any fan base should be happy with the team that's winning, and they're competitive in most of their games, as opposed to a lot of programs. Yeah, they may score a lot of points. You look at LSU; they can score as well as anybody. They have as many offensive weapons as anybody. But me and you could pick up 3 guys off the street, and some nights they couldn't stop us defensively.
Yeah.
I mean, they're just awful.
Yeah.
I mean, Alabama made, I think, 27 threes against them a little over 3 weeks ago in Baton Rouge. So, but I think that is one thing that Brad might be battling against, as opposed to with Nate Oates at Alabama, is that if you're at a football power, and same thing at Kentucky, if you're a basketball school, if your football team's competitive, but they play an exciting style of football, or in Clemson's or Alabama's case, an exciting style of basketball that people like to watch, you get a little more leeway maybe than a coach that doesn't play an up and down style of basketball. But at the same point, he's a really solid fundamental coach.
Yeah, he is. Richmond, we're about out of time because we've got to take the break in a couple of minutes, and then we've got Doug Dean coming on at 4:30. But your closing comments on that, and again, how people can follow you, because you work your tail off to put out a really good podcast, Richmond on Sports.
Yes, well, I do appreciate that. And it's actually called Rich Take on Sports, but you can find it wherever you find your podcast, or just go to richtakeonsports.com. But I agree with all of that said, that, fortunately, the athletic department has given Brad time, and I think they learned their lesson early on with Dabo Swinney. They were actually able to give him a little bit of time, and look what happened. So Brad has been able to reap the benefits of that. But there is a contingency of Clemson faithful that are not happy because it still haven't been able to break through that ceiling, so to speak, on the basketball side. And then when you combine it that you don't play in a up-tempo type of game, that can cause the Clemson faithful to be very apathetic about the team. And that's a disappointing thing that Clemson faithful I should say, is that they're not as supportive because they don't like the style of play. And Coach Brownell is a really good coach. And I think the one thing that people want to see from him, though, is can he be a good and great recruiter and bring one of those one and done types of players. And when he didn't get Zion Williamson, that was a big red mark on Coach Brownell.
Yeah.
Don't even get me started on that.
Yeah. And it's just, you know what? Hey,
how Duke got him.
Yeah. I watched on ACC Network right now. There's a really good piece that's been done called the Class That Saved Coach K. Look what he went through. And all these coaches, if you go back, a lot of them, the majority of the great ones struggled early on because the process that they were and the culture that they were building wasn't going to happen overnight, but they were given time. And it's, believe me, that's something people are always short on. They just don't want to, they don't have the patience. But hey, Richmond Weaver, we want to have you back on here again soon. Great having your insight from over in Greenville and Carolina, Clemson, the ACC. Let's do this, guys. We're going to go to a commercial break and come back with Doug Dean from Birmingham. Before we do it, I want to say Red River Ford Toyota in Wynn, Arkansas. They're not open today. They'll be open tomorrow morning, Monday morning, 9 a.m. to 6 p.m., Monday through Saturday. Justin Wynn, the general manager, is on here regularly. The sales manager, Rusty Howard, John Dobbs Jr. from Memphis, part of the Red River Auto Group ownership team. Their family's been in the car and truck business for a long time. That's what you need to know. They're committed to making it the best possible experience when you're going to buy a car or truck, Ford or Toyota. You'll love it. Get online, Red River Ford Toyota website, It's on the sidelines.live website. You can get the process started and go in there and be out of there in 15 or 20 minutes if you cross all your T's and dot all your I's. Great people to work with. They got new inventory of Toyota cars and trucks and Ford cars and trucks and SUVs, and they will be there. Look, I know we got some snow coming in. They'll be there. And Austin Future on the service department, they're even open on Saturdays until noon. And if you're looking to do a trade-in, they're telling us these are the best prices they've seen in 20 years or so. But as the inventory gets built back up, it won't be that good. So check them out. Red River Ford Toyota in Wynne, Arkansas, about 45 minutes from Memphis. Let's take a quick commercial break. Rob Brown here on the Sidelines.Live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. I'm going to tell you what, it is cold over here at the hunting lodge at the Cherry Farm. And I'm looking out the window. I do see some polar bears. I see some wolves out there. Man, it is freezing over here. Going to have some snow. But look, we got another half hour to go talking college football and basketball. Gordon Ford, Jimmy Hodge, and Richmond Weaver's been our guest from Rich Take On Sports over in Greenville, South Carolina. We'll be right back.
Hey, Rob.
Yeah.
I need to get off.
Yeah. You
got other guests. I got something I got to take care of.
Yeah. Do it. Thanks, Gordon. That was perfect. Appreciate it. Jimmy, I'll be right back
Bye.
with you. Okay.
Okay.
All right, boys. Yeah.
Okay. How much longer? 50 seconds. Okay. Hey, Doug. Man,
How y'all doing?
good, man. Good. Thanks for being flexible. He was supposed to be on at
totally.
3:30, and then he got in at 4, something like that. He hit a family emergency.
It's live TV, baby.
Yeah, I know. It's but man, but some good stuff. We were, Jimmy, I really, Coach K, I like him. I love the guy. I think he's great. But that, stopping and starting, and when they lost those conference games early, y'all were right. That was,
They get what they deserve.
yeah, they do. Exactly.
Well, in 1995, when
Here we go.
he had
Okay, Rob Brown back here with you on the Sunday afternoon edition of the Sidelines.Live wrap-up show. Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville, Doug Dean in Birmingham on with us. Gordon Ford, I had to go take care of Homer the dog, probably going to a store to get supplies. We're supposed to be getting some snow here, and I don't know, Jimmy, if it's supposed to come over toward Knoxville or you're going to get any of this in Birmingham, Doug, but hey, got the fire going. We are over here at the Cherry Farm in Parkin talking college football and basketball. And Doug Dean, you put together the AU Daily Dose down there in Birmingham. You got great insight. You are in contact with a lot of people that make things happen in college football, basketball, baseball, what have you. But as always, you've got great insight. And anytime you're on here, people listen, like the old E.F. Hutton commercials. When Doug Dean speaks, people listen because what you say matters.
Hey, gentlemen, Jenny and Rob and your talented producer, Audrey, everyone involved, Nigel. Good to hear from you. I enjoyed the show all weekend. And by the way,
Thank you.
that hyperbole in your kind remarks. Did I sign a sponsorship agreement or something?
Hey, absolutely. I mean, man, we love having you on here.
it bears no resemblance to the reality. I'm just an average football and sports fan at large, but thank you for the kind remarks. I've heard Jake Crane got kind of fired up about the flaws, shall we say, and there are plenty to cover of the NCAA. And I'm going to pick up on that. I think Jimmy had comments as well about that they are teetering, if you ask me, not an original thought, but they're definitely teetering on the possibility of extinction, which would have sounded absurd to mention even probably 10 years ago. But I want to keep piling on. We've got the player tackled, and I want to be the 12th player that jumps on the pile and gets a flag thrown. And I'm probably just, with our limited time, putting a place card here, Rob and Jimmy, for a future discussion, because it's certainly still evolving. I refer obviously to NIL, the name, image, and likeness issue. And I don't think the average fan, and maybe none of us, because it's going to evolve and have reactions and actions. And that includes in the Department of Justice, as I'll comment on. So let me do that really quickly and get both of y'all to react and see what's the end game with this. You know, if you think about what was at the heart of, to the extent good things were done over the years, and we should probably be fair to the NCAA's intention until recent years. I think a lot of it was to protect amateurism, the notion of amateurism. And if my Jimmy and my good Bama friends wouldn't mind a left-handed compliment, when I watched Alabama, to their credit, disassemble Ohio State, the last word that came to my mind was amateurism. and I don't mean anything untoward by that. It's just, I think it's, for a long, long time, it's been a little silly how NCAA plays the game, and they're doing as close as they can to college Power 5 football being the minor leagues for development league for the NFL in the absence of an actual development league. And so what I think you would want to keep an eye on is back in December, Senator Roger Wicker from Mississippi introduced a bill on name, image, and likeness. And what was the interesting thing about that, and the powers, of course, shifted since then, but his bill had the FTC, Trade Commission, overseeing the NIL endeavors, and it would have granted the NCAA some antitrust protection from legal entanglement.
Yeah, and they've got to be very careful with this whole thing. Yeah,
they proposed doing some things that are going to probably get challenged by the assistant AG, Makan Delrahim, if I'm pronouncing that right, has indicated that they have real concerns about college athletes, like everyone else in our, I'm quoting, free economy, being able to benefit appropriately from competition. So can you imagine the Tank Bigsby, Auburn Opelika Land Rover sponsorship, about $100K a year for that running back?
Yeah,
there's a lot of opportunity, as if we don't already have illicit activity. I think I'd give a lot of credit to boosters at every school for being creative enough to find someone who's not a booster to work out these NIL arrangements. You guys' thoughts on this emerging issue?
Well, let me say this. And Rob Anderson, Shoney from Valdosta, Georgia, is on here with us, and I'm gonna let him come in here in a minute and chime in. But name, image, and likeness, we've got to be real careful with, and we've talked about this a lot. Jake, Jimmy, all of us. And what about when you sign a 5-star recruit and he comes in and he's already got a sponsorship with a car company or a clothing company or any athletic company? Is there going to be pressure? Sure there will, to play that guy, even if he's not ready. You got to be careful with that. And again, you need to go in there and shut this thing. I'm all for these guys getting profiting. Put it in a blind trust or age-banded trust. Whatever money they earn, have it where it's deferred, where they get it when they're 25, 35, 40, whatever, because they'll blow it. Also, you run the risk of the wide receiver who's getting $10,000 a month sponsorship paying the quarterback to throw him all the balls. And don't think that won't happen. The terms of endearment in life and business, sports, you name it, follow the money trail. So we got to be real careful with that. But again, I'm all for free enterprise, capitalism. It works. Communism fails. They have to shoot people to keep people to stay on the other side of the Berlin Wall. Come on. Socialism.
From your comments, Rob, I assume you would not want to free Britney Spears from her conservatorship.
Oh, yeah. I'll tell you one thing. She needs some help. But I'm just saying, absolutely, they can make money. But again, set it up in blind trust to where they get it later. But these athletes, again, I'll just close this, and then we're going to Jimmy. They're not downtrodden. They're not being taken advantage of. They get so many benefits by being there. Okay. Do soldiers, individual soldiers, get benefits from fighting in combat? I mean, do they get endorsements and all like that? I mean, come on. Why do we need to screw it up? Because a bunch of idiots out in California who want the rest of the country to suffer as fools as they are, want to push this narrative. Look, set it up, do it right, but end this silliness, because don't think for a second money won't be used and influence, and you'll be forced to play this guy or that guy because he's got a sponsorship. And then what about the equestrian team and all the other stuff? You ready to do it for everybody? It's opening up something that doesn't need to be opened up. And again, you're getting a lot as a student athlete, and if you work your tail off, get your degree, and you play 4 or 5 years, football, basketball, whatever sport, and people know you, they know what you did, it's going to open up a lot of doors for the rest of your life. Hard work works. Your hard work and your word and putting God first. That's it. That's what we need to be doing, instead of all these guys are just picked on and all. Flush that down the toilet. Jimmy, what do you think?
Well, I think this whole thing is going to eventually just come down to legal challenges. I mean, and that could go on forever. I mean, I know the NCAA has, as far as I know, recently kind of backed down from, this legislation. I thought it would have been passed by now. I don't know if you guys have any further update on that. If they're going to, try to still fine tune this and have a vote on it. So I'm really just trying to figure out how it stands, because as of now, I don't think it's gone through, has it?
No, not that I know of.
I don't think it has. They had a board of governors. I won't bore you with the whole history. April 28, 20 board of governors meeting, and they were really dealing with the basics of image and likeness rules, compensation for third-party endorsements, student athlete opportunities, and I think their hope is that they said no later than the start of the 2021-22 academic year, they would have legislation out there. But again, there's some reason to believe, especially with the more liberal people in the DOJ and in Washington, that if it's not favorable to athletes as that is viewed in Washington, there may be DOJ, the long arm of the DOJ influences, controls, like Rob wanted to put, rightly so, and I agreed with him, let it be delayed compensation. It's held in trust. Even that, do you agree, Jimmy, could get legally challenged as a follow-up to the SCOTUS ruling?
Well, no question, because those very same people are going to argue that this is going to be geared to the money makers, football, basketball, and there's a handful of programs in women's basketball that make money, but it's going to be geared toward those sports. And if you do that, you're going to have every Title IX and ACLU attorney in existence that are going to challenge that. And I mean, we could be looking at years of legal wrangling.
Yeah,
and it attracts you can really. I'm suspicious of people that are taking up the plight of the poor student athlete. It garners you a lot of goodwill politically in certain segments, and I think that's going to also fuel both the political, the propaganda, and the media I can see ESPN jumping all over this, and certainly the legal challenges. So I just think it's a disruptive factor. I did talk to Coach Harsin, and I think he's in a majority of coaches who are honest, who will be honest that he thinks it is not a good idea. The name, image, and like actually the transfer portal was his bigger gripe. But I think coaches are not going to say, I don't want players making money because that hurts recruiting. But I think most of them probably have concerns about how they're going to create a culture of equality and performance on their teams.
Yeah, and you can look. I mean, that's what I do for a living, is working with people on wealth management. And you know, the first generation typically employs, the second generation typically enjoys, and the third generation typically destroys when it comes to wealth.
Yeah.
Okay, and you know, so my attorney that I worked with for 20 years. Before he died 7 years ago, Barry Blackburn went to Auburn with me, the best I've ever worked with. He used to say age-banded trust or incentive-based trust. And that incentive-based trust, to borrow the quote from Angus's father in Braveheart, when he pulled that arrow out of his chest, that'll wake you up in the morning. But that'll get him out of bed in the morning, because for every dollar that you earn from your job, you get $1 from the trust. As you get older, maybe it's $5 or whatever, but got to be careful with that. I want to get the thoughts real quick too from Rob Shoney Anderson, man, one of my fraternity brothers from 715 West Magnolia. Doug, first reference so far. It's time to drink.
Drinking game every time.
There it goes.
When you hear Rob say Sigma Newhouse on West Magnolia, you need to take a shot of tequila.
And Ida and Mary and Cooley, you crazy, Brown. But Rob, what do you think about this? I mean, I'm all for capitalism. We all are. But it's just, you start putting that kind of money in these guys' hands when they're 19 and 20, and then that pressure to play that guy because he's got that sponsorship, and the sponsor's putting pressure on you because, hey, they might also be a sponsor for all of your athletic programs at your school. It's dangerous stuff.
My first observation, Rob, is what's going to happen to Dodge Charger sales in the Tuscaloosa area.
Well, I mean, you know, look, we all know, you know, that a lot of crazy stuff goes on in recruiting. We know about that, but I agree with you.
Say things like specific like that anymore.
No. I'm just saying it's just you can go in a million directions with it, but it's just going to be. I mean, keep going.
You got to protect them from themselves up until maybe some older than others.
Yeah,
but I know wise people that have hung on to a little and eventually comes a lot. Now, there's some other ones that I thought were pretty wise that, due to unforeseeable circumstances, are scratching their bald head right now. So, all you can do is show people the right way to do, put them in front of good examples, and go from there. But as usual, in my opinion, lawyers will litigate anything to death if they have someone waiting to pay the fare.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good point. I mean, Doug, that's and keep going with where you're going, because this is a great topic. And I know Vince Thompson, our friend over there in Atlanta at Melt Inc. and Kyle Orr and all are they're big on this name, image, and likeness. And you're going to start hearing from them a lot here.
There's a cottage industry coming. You agree?
Yeah, but and I'm not trying to begrudge that, but I'm saying it needs to be handled right. And I don't want overbearing government agencies micromanaging everything we do, but also I'm not buying this narrative that these athletes are taken advantage of. I mean, that's a bunch of BS.
Well, I agree, and I think part of what I'm humbly proposing here is not a weekly segment. It's a little dry when you get into these legal terms, and that might explain why it's kind of jumped out at me. That what was being talked about from the major media outlets, but that almost nothing is with any detail or specificity or forecasting how this would look, how it would, how the big programs would manage a player having NIL opportunities. I'm kind of blown away that the crickets and the silence is deafening on it. So I think periodically, if you can bring a guest in, and you certainly have the ability to access them, who's really far more an authority on where this is headed, what the challenges will look like, and when it is made operational, presumably sometime later this year, unless it gets delayed for good reason, then how's it going to play out, or what are we going to be seeing on our major college football teams? And oh, by the way, how does this play into the psychology of where the big time high 4-star and 5-star elite players choose to go? Because you would figure where you're playing, if you're co-branding what helmet you're wearing, goes a long way toward who's going to want to pony up for your name, image, and likeness. And is it really your image and likeness, or is it also one of those proverbial helmet schools?
Well, we are going to have Vince Thompson, my friend who went to Auburn from Chatham, Alabama, Washington County, the founder and the CEO of Melt Incorporated over in Atlanta, which is media, entertainment, leisure, travel. This coming Friday, he's going to be a guest on Sidelines.live, Friday podcast, 3 to 5 p.m. Central, talking about this very subject, because really he's been, and his company, the tip of the spear with all this name, image, and likeness. And we talked a few weeks ago about 8 billion could become 16 billion a year in college, advertising revenue. It's ginormous, as my kids like to say. So we are going to get into that, Doug, and this is a great topic. Jimmy.
Outstanding.
Yeah, Jimmy, you played college football and baseball at La Monroe and UT Chattanooga, and worked with Adidas as one of the 4 branding people going all over the country. And some parts of the country, facilities are better than others. But bottom line, college, it's about the brand. It's about the name. It's about the logo on the side of the helmet, versus the NFL. It's about the name on the back of the jersey. I don't want to lose that. There's something special. There's a lot special about college athletics. But this narrative being pushed, that these athletes are just being taken advantage of, it's a false narrative. And we don't have anybody standing up to it. Coaches are saying what, like you said, Brian Harsin, Auburn's new coach, and I'm sure lots of coaches feel this way. It's going to be an issue in recruiting. What's the best strategy that should be followed to make it work for everybody?
Gee, I don't know if there's a way it's going to work for everybody. I mean, if we were looking at today, I think you'd be looking at guys like, Trevor Lawrence, maybe last year, Tua, let's say 10 years ago, maybe Cam, Johnny Manziel, possibly. But you're just talking, I think, just a minute portion of the players that make up these teams. And if it becomes more of a common occurrence, you'll obviously have some more, because you have some of these companies that if they see an opportunity, they're going to get involved with the more prominent players on the traditionally more successful programs. And the problem you have with that can cause tremendous upheaval in the locker room. And, a locker room that has bad chemistry is likely going to equal a team that doesn't achieve the success that it needs to. So I think everybody should kind of be in certain ways careful for what they wish for. And I think everybody may need to just take a step back and just further study every possible aspect that they can in trying to examine the potential strengths and minuses of this potential venture here, because I think it's going to be a lot more complicated than some people think. And I think coaches have enough problems to worry about without having to deal with a fractured locker room that, yeah, I think probably in most seasons of their coaching career was not something they had to worry about.
Yeah, it's about who's getting the money. I mean, let's face it, people can become jealous and divided. And, Shoney, you're right. If lawyers feel like they can keep litigating it because somebody's willing to pay the bill, they're going to keep litigating it. Again,
Absolutely.
Shoney, I mean, I just, and then does this get down into high school? Are you going to have guys leaving in 10th or 11th grade in high school because they don't want to get hurt because they're afraid it may jeopardize them getting a college scholarship? And I mean, we better be careful with this stuff, guys, in football and college, because you may have guys come in. Maurice Clarett, y'all remember the Ohio State running back in 2002? They won the national championship, I think 37-34. That crazy call against Miami in the 2002 national championship game. But he threatened and he said, I'm gonna try and go to the NFL after 1 year. Forget about it. It didn't happen. He took care of that himself. He made a lot of dumb decisions, but we've got to be careful because we could wipe the game out.
Well, and Rob, when you add bolt on to this, I'm sorry to be as if it's hee-haw, gloom, despair, and agony, because there's still a lot. I'm excited to get football back as we know it, particularly game day on the campuses is yesterday as soon as possible in terms of numbers of people. But
yeah,
add to this the transfer portal. The more we push the individual rights of student athletes, which on its face seems admirable, but I've talked to coaches at the college level that say everything is different now. You used to be able to bench a player and in your mind it's probably going to be one game to get his attention. Now you do that as a coach, and in some cases you find out through the media that kid responded by being in the transfer portal during that week. It's out of control, and we have free agency if it stays this way, we're going to have free agency, and I don't think we'll like how it plays out overall.
Well, we got to stop it. What I'm saying, nip it in the bud, as Barney would often say on the Andy Griffith Show, and put your foot down. Quit allowing these narratives to be pushed and say, no, we're not going to do it. I'll tell you what's going to happen. These student athletes are going to find out, if they want to push this, they're going to find out the hard way. It is the fans who make all this possible, who pay for everything. It's the donors who pay for all this. Okay? You keep pushing this stuff, you're going to get punched in the mouth and nobody's going to want you. Okay? They'll go find other people. Okay? Go find student athletes that want to be there. It's already a joke, these damn one and dones that they do at Kentucky. It's abhorrent to the academic process to have these people. They're not even going to class. That's a joke. And so to everybody else that's there trying to get a degree and do it the right way, again, this isn't an attack on student athletes. It's pointing out that Doug, you just said it, that the athletes, they're not in charge. Tell them that. I mean, Jimmy, you got kids. Shoney, you got kids. Doug, you got kids. I got 3 kids. Hey, let me tell y'all something. Better, y'all know this. Kids aren't in charge. Hey, life's not fair. It's not, there are going to be times in your life, there are going to be a lot of times in your life when people tell you that you can't do something. Like President Trump says, I listen to his motivation videos a lot. Hey, use the word impossible as motivation to overcome anything that gets in your way. Because along the way to the top, you're going to hear from most people telling you it can't be done. And Jimmy, again, you were a student athlete, always will be. And we all know them. But they have got a lot of advantages that the regular students don't. And if you work your butt off and you go interview for a job and you look that man, that woman in the eye, and they know your background. You played college football, you played lacrosse, you were on the equestrian team, you were a swimmer, you were a basketball player, whatever. They know if you lasted 3, 4, 5 years that you have discipline and you've got a work ethic. And that typically translates to success in the business world because you know about overcoming adversity and working as a team and reaching goals and realizing that the only easy day was yesterday. Jimmy, we got about 5 minutes. We're going to go a little bit over tonight, but respond to that real quick.
Well, I just, again, I think it's just a situation where you're just, I think, always going to be dealing with change. Nothing's ever going to remain the same, and I think as far as this particular situation is concerned, again, I just think somehow, some way, we've got to, I think, come up to us with a solution just very, very soon, instead of just dragging this out over time and having opposite sides wrestle back and forth on trying to do what's best for them. They just need to come to a hard conclusion whether this is even worth pursuing or not. And if we're not, just go ahead and just cut it off right now, because again, you're looking at years of potential just legal battles and money being wasted that doesn't have to be wasted, and tying up a bunch of time with people that just don't need to be spending it on a matter like this. But then if you're going to try to work it out, try to do it in a timely manner. I mean, I just don't see any easy way to come up with a solution to this. But again, if you're going to try to work it out one way or the other, you just got to make a decision. I don't know what you guys feel, because they're almost endless, the number of potential possibilities that exist, and then once they start putting it into motion, these same people are going to find additional opportunities, and it's just going to be endless. And I just think we're getting beyond the basic purpose of what we're trying to do, and that is, conduct the operation of these sports in a manner that's enjoyable and constructive to everybody that's involved.
Yeah, I agree with this. And look, we've run out of time. My wife's over there telling me I didn't realize we were a little bit over here. But hey, Doug Dean, I'll let you know, Vince Thompson, founder and CEO of Melt Atlanta, who is at the tip of the spear with this NIL stuff, supposed to be on the show next Friday. If we have to move it up and do a podcast earlier during the week, I'm going to have you on as well.
That'd be great.
As Jimmy and Rob, because it is a topic that's got to be talked about. You cannot play kick the can with it, okay? It's got to be dealt with, and it is high time that these kids, 16, 17, 18-year-old kids, learn you're getting a college education. That scholarship is not a 4-year guarantee. It's a 1 year, it's a renewable at the end of the year based on what the coaches feel like you've done. If you're not trying, they're not going to keep you on scholarship, okay? And they've got to learn. They work hard. So's everybody else. The students there, they're working hard too. But the bottom line is, if you work hard, you go to class, you take advantage of all the opportunities that are presented to you. The only thing given to you in life is failure. You don't have to do anything. You get it for free, okay? But I learned one of the most valuable lessons in my life. My first quarter at Auburn, I did not light it up. I was right up there with Mr. Blutarski. I didn't, but I wasn't that bad. But I went home for winter quarter. I came back down, and my mother said, that pledge trainer is going to be waiting on you at Auburn at 715 West Magnolia, right there at the corner. She goes, but if you run from your problems now, they're going to haunt you 6 months, 6 years, 60, 80 years from now. Face life head on. Deal with it.
Here.
Don't play kick the can. And I remember getting down there to Auburn. I walked across the street, and there he was, old David Abel from Gadsden, Alabama, just standing out there with the other winter pledges. he said, get over here with your Pledge Brothers. And by the way, get over there and start cleaning up the lawn in front of the house. Hey, didn't miss a beat, but I also learned you're only as strong as your weakest link. Philip Allen Thompson said that. You got to stand your ground. Tell these kids, hey, you're getting a scholarship. You're getting so much. Appreciate what you've got, okay? And quit wanting what you don't have. And I think that's another Sheryl Crow line that we talk about a lot. But, hey, Rob Anderson from Valdosta, Doug Dean in Birmingham, Jimmy Hodge up in Knoxville. I bet you're glad you're not up in Chicago, Jimmy. I bet it's cold up there, but it's going to be cold in Knoxville, too. We had Gordon Ford on earlier. Richmond Weaver, Rich Take on Sports from over in Greenville, South Carolina. Everybody, thank you so much for tuning in here. Sidelines.live Sunday afternoon wrap-up show. We'll be back with you. Again, check out our podcast tomorrow night and www.sidelines.live. Hey, don't quit because you're tired. Quit because you're done. And Audrey's over there saying you've run overtime, and I don't want her to come over here and pull my hair. We'll see you tomorrow. Great
show, Rob.
You bet. Thank y'all. Thank y'all. You bet. I love it. Hey, guys.